Thank you, Lord Srikandajisha. Now we move on to the resource person, Shri Adarsh VK sir. We move on for the talk.
Okay, thank you TKMM College and Ranjini for giving me an opportunity to discuss some mathematics to this huge number of people. I think I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are finally audible.
Yeah. So, I am going to my presentation and hello all the participants.
It's fine. It's working.
Yeah, hello. Let me start. First of all, while I was committing this talk, I had not finalized my topic, but I wanted to discuss something related to geometry. So I have chosen, now I am settled with this title, which is Transformations of Euclidean Plane and Arithmetic of Complex Numbers. Let me tell you, you may not take this as a serious mathematics discussion. This is only a casual talk. You can take it as a casual talk. So I wanted to talk about geometry of Cartesian plane, and I want to link that geometry to arithmetic of complex numbers. First, have a look at these two figures. This will be familiar to most of you. First figure gives the complex plane. I have just drawn some basic entities on complex plane. If you have a complex number z, we usually denote it by x plus iy, and in modulus amplitude form it will be r cos theta plus I sin theta, and this length represents the modulus, and this is the argument, the positive angle from a positive x-axis to, the angle from positive x-axis to this radial line. This is the, I don't want to tell much about these things, but just I want you to have a look at these things. So as my title suggests, I am going to relate these two things. So first of all, note that these two are more or less the same thing, but the symbols are different, right? To take a point here and point here we represent it by ordered pair xy, here we represent by x plus iy. But this part contains more arithmetic. There is a one important thing. Okay, before going to the main topic, first why this topic? First reason is something personal. I am not good in geometry. And I believe that to study something seriously, it is better to discuss that topic to somebody else. But I got a chance to discuss this with more than 200 people. If something is going wrong, please correct me if there is some expert in geometry. So that is not a serious reason anyway. Now the second reason is my case is not an odd one. What I believe is in college mathematics we have not given much importance to geometry. So after doing plain geometry in school, for example, we can rarely saw a teacher draw a figure on board in colleges, or even a student draw a figure on his book. College student draw a book on even especially MSc students. So this is my personal opinion. You can question me. That is another reason. And the third reason, while Ranjini was calling me about on taking this lecture, she was demanding to take something related to online math learning, to introduce some tool or something. But I am not an expert in any tool, but I use several tools. So I thought I will demonstrate some mathematics using some of the tools. So that is a third reason why I have chosen this topic, because geometry is a good choice, I feel. So my first section goes like this: group of motions and complex arithmetic. Between I will be using this presentation. In between I will be showing some dynamics using GeoGebra. That is the way I am going to do this. And I am not going to prove anything rigorously. my explanations will be quite sketchy, but will give you some ideas, basic ideas. So what is Euclidean geometry or plane geometry? Yeah. We can put it like this. Anything we might choose to draw on a large piece of flat paper. So, and that will be called some geometrical figures. Then what we study in geometry, just to draw the figures and measure it? No. We usually study geometrical properties.
Excuse me, Adish sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah, tell me.
your audio is muted.
Oh, please. Then you can ask what is geometrical properties. Well, geometrical properties means properties that are common to equal or congruent figures. Then you may ask what are equal figures. Okay. So we have to define what is meant by equal figures properly. This is not only in geometry. Whenever you consider a set of objects in mathematics, the first important thing is you have to define what is meant by equality of objects. It doesn't matter what kind of symbols you use for that set or elements of that set. You can represent the set of all natural numbers using Arabic numerals or Roman numerals or whatever. But the thing is that you have to be clear what is meant by two objects are equal and they are not equal. So in this case also we have to define the equality. So in geometry usually we define equality using transformations. Let me show you an example. Suppose you have a plane and an object like this. And suppose you have another object like this. Suppose that you want to compare these two triangles. So what is the one way? You can just take this triangle out and yeah. You can take this triangle out and place above this triangle, right? Then you can check whether they are equal. In fact, using the size and all. But that is not allowed in plane geometry. That is only possible in space. But you cannot just take out the triangle and keep it over this another triangle. So what is the other possibility? You can transform the entire plane and in such a way that this figure coincide with this figure. Okay. This kind of equality, what I am speaking about is distance preserving equalities, right? Our first consideration is distance preserving transformations, which are usually called isometry or rigid motion. So what is a rigid motion? Before that, now that why I am considering transformation, we have two objects, two figures on the plane. I want to check whether they are equal or not. My first definition for equality is they have the same size and dimension. That means I can transform the entire plane in such a way that I can place the first figure onto the second figure. If they are matching, then they are equal. That is the first definition of my equality. Okay. Now I define it as motion. So what is meant by a motion? Motion means a mapping from plane to itself, such that it preserves the distance between 2 points. Let us do some dynamics to understand this. You consider this quadrilateral Q1. Okay. Now I do a motion. Consider this quadrilateral Q1. I am doing a motion, distance preserving motion. Yeah. What I am doing is I am translating the figure. So you should observe that I am not only translating this figure, translating this q1 means I am translating the entire plane, right? I am translating the entire plane. Okay. So I will denote this translation by T81. I am doing at the translation using the vector 81. So what I am doing here, I am adding the vector 81 to each point on the plane. Right? I am adding the vector 81 to each point on the plane. That automatically translates this particular quadrilateral to this q1 prime. So what are the properties of this translation? I can do the inverse translation. I can go back to the original q1 by doing a same kind of motion, which is T81 inverse. It is clear that that is given by the vector -8 -1. I can go back to the original quadrilateral. Now suppose I am doing another translation. What I am doing is I am translating q1 prime to q1 double prime. That is done using the vector 1 -7. That is same kind of motion. Okay. Now think about the composition of these two translations. It is easy to see that the composition is also a translation given by this. Right? The composition translates each point of the plane by the vector 9 - 6. So what do you observe? At least for this kind of motions, it has an inverse. The composition is associative. This figure suggests that the operation is associative. In fact, this is commutative also. If you consider only translations, I am not talking about motions, translations only. But for a general motion also, the same kind of properties will preserve, except commutativity. You can prove that a general, if you take any kind of motions, they have the same kind of properties because they are distance preserving transformations. You can move one figure to here, you can go back. If you move from here to here and here to here, the composition will give you here to here. Okay, so what is our conclusion? I have not proven this thing, but you can prove easily using such kind of figures. In fact, it is more or less the same proof, but we did with the translations. So set of all motions forms a group. That is an important observation. Okay, so I have given the coordinates for just if you can check this. You can check arbitrarily, take some points and check that. This is the composition is given by this translation. Anyway, so what we observe is set of all motions of the plane forms a group. If I am defining equality using only motions, then that collection of transformations forms a group. This is an important observation done not only by Felix Klein, but Klein did rigorously such kind of things. So he did it in his 23 years of age, I think, and that time he was studying at the University of Erlangen. So this program is also called the Erlangen program. So what was his idea? Let me make it clear. So instead of defining some transformations, you first start with a collection of transformations which forms a group like this motion. First select the group G of transformation, then define the corresponding geometry. How you will define the corresponding geometry? The geometrical properties that are invariants with respect to that transformation. The transformation belongs to that group G. Okay, let us consider one more example. Yeah, we have seen the translation. Now I want to do rotation. First I will rotate about the origin. Here O is the origin. This is my object. So what happens if I rotate with respect to origin? In fact, this happens. Yeah. So in this case also you can easily observe that like a translation, you can rotate this object from here to some other point, and you can rotate back also. So there is an inverse. And the composition also a rotation. The angle added, right? If it is negative, then correspondingly it added. So what I am telling it, if you collect all the rotations about the origin, that also forms a group. That means if you consider the group of all motions, the group of all translations is a subgroup or subgeometry, and the set of all rotations about origin is also a subgroup or subgeometry, right? Okay. Now the idea of Klein was this: why should we rotate about O? Now I can consider the rotation about the point C on this disk. So this dynamics tells us that this, if you consider only rotations about C on this disk, that also forms a group, right? That is not a subgroup of that group of our motions. This is some kind of geometry that we can do only in this disk. You can draw a figure on this disk and you can rotate through C. So that will give you another kind of geometry, right? So that was the idea of Klein. You start with any kind of group of transformation and do the geometry. A study about the invariance. So this is the conclusion of these observations. All right. Now let me just go out of the main topic. I am not going to be very rigorous on these things. This idea of Klein is a quite broader sense of geometry. This gives you several type of geometries which have very important applications in the current research areas of mathematics and other even physics or something. So this gives you this leads you to projective geometry, spherical geometry, hyperbolic geometry, and etc. I'm not going to talk much about these things, but I just want to give you some images. Just you can see. This is our plane geometry. This is hyperbolic geometry. This is Riemannian geometry or spherical geometry. And you can just see what happens to a triangle in hyperbolic geometry. See here. If you consider the angle sum, it is not going to be 180, right? It is much lesser than 180. So that is why it is called a non-Euclidean geometry. Non-Euclidean geometry. Okay. Now the actual fact is, even though we are not officially studying non-Euclidean geometry, but if you did a Carlson complex analysis, then you might have seen Mobius transformations, right? This is an important group of transformation. You know that collection of all Mobius transformations forms a group. I just want to give an exercise, or for a further study, we can just go back and see the properties of Mobius transformation. This automatically leads you to non-Euclidean geometry. Okay, not only in non-Euclidean geometry, this has application to several other areas of mathematics. Even the area that I am working, number theory, also uses this Mobius transformation heavily. All right. So now we can go back to the complex plane. Yeah. What are the arithmetic of complex numbers? Yeah, this is the definition of addition. Just add the real part plus I into some of the imaginary part. And what is the definition of multiplication? In terms of modulus amplitude form, the multiplication goes like this. You consider a complex number r e raised to I theta, you multiply it with s e raised to I phi, that will give you rs e raised to I theta plus phi. So let us look into the dynamics. Yeah. What is meant by addition? Addition is just, it is just the vector addition, right? Yeah, it's exactly same as adding two vectors, right? So now if you look at the multiplication, what it does, you consider a complex number z2 and multiply it with the complex number z1. Let me make it smaller so that you can see the product. Yeah. So if you multiply z1 and z2, you will get a complex number z4, and the argument, the angle from the positive x-axis becomes theta 1 plus theta 2, right, where theta 1 is the argument of z1 and theta 2 is the argument of z2. So the important thing is what this multiplication does. What is the dynamics of this multiplication? You fix the z1 and suppose that you are multiplying with the z2, right? So what it does, it rotates z2. Not only it rotates, z1, if you are fixing z1 and multiplying with z2, it rotates z1 and it increases the magnitude, right? That means it does rotation and a translation. That's what it did. And we know that these rotations and translations are motions, distance preserving maps, right? Yeah, that is the one important observation about this complex arithmetic. Yeah, I will come back to this more rigorously in the next arguments. Okay. Now, yeah, is it okay? Is there any problem? Yes? No?
No problem, sir. No
Yeah, yeah.
problem, sir. You can go on.
Yeah. So now to make it more clear, let me consider one more example. You consider a complex number z1. Now, suppose I multiply this z1 using e raised to I theta. So what happens? It increases or decreases the argument. See, so multiplying with e raised to I theta actually does the rotation of the point z1. So if you consider a figure, your some image here, and you treat each point on the image as a complex number, then if you multiply with e raised to I theta with a fixed theta, what it does, it rotates the image about origin, right? That is what it does. So multiplying with a complex number or e raised to I theta is exactly rotating by an angle theta. Okay, this is the conclusion we got. Multiplying with e raised to I theta gives all the rotational motions about origin. Addition gives all the translation. So these are the two observations we got. Now, what about the composition of these two maps? You consider this image. Suppose I do a translation by say 4 minus 2. Yeah. This is the exactly same figure translated to here. Now composition, now I do a rotation, say 20 degree or something. Yeah, it is quite increase. Yeah. So composition of rotations and translations is again motions. Right? So here one important thing is, that means the group of motions contains set of all rotations about the origin and set of all translations. Now one interesting fact is, I have did this rotation and translation not moving this image. What I did is I fixed three points. I considered this triangle ABC. Then I actually rotate and translate the triangle and make all the points of the image move with the translation or rotation. That is what I did. So this tells us that the motion of a point on the plane depends on the distance of this point from the vertices of a triangle. So that is what it tells, right? Okay. So this idea helps us to classify all the motions. We have already seen two kinds of motions, rotations and translations. So what are the other motions? So this is what we observed now. To make it more clear, let me do one more example. So what I was telling is the motion depends on a triangle. That's what I was telling. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I want to establish my argument. Motion depends on what I am going to establish. A motion is uniquely determined by its effect on any triangle. That's what I am going to establish. You consider this triangle ABC, right? I want to move the point D. But first what I did is I calculated the distance from D to B. Only this distance cannot determine the movement because there are several points from B having the same distance. So I have measured measured the distance from A. So in this time also, this time there is 2 points, right? D and E from having this distance. So what is so if you consider distance from C also, then it uniquely determines the point D, right? Now you do a motion. What I did is, instead of moving D, I have moved the triangle ABC. That will give you the triangle A prime, B prime and C prime. Since this is a distance preserving transformation, it is a motion, therefore distance preserving transformation, the only choice for this D, the image of D, is given by this, right? So that is how it happens. So the motion of any image or figure on the plane depends only on its distance from a triangle. Okay. Now this key idea helps us to classify all the motions. Let us see how we can do that. Again, consider this triangle ABC. Okay, I already talk about rotations and translations, right? Now there is another motion given by flipping. This is also a distance preserving transformation. But what is the difference between rotation and translation and flipping? If you do rotation, the angle will not change, right? This angle, the angle from say AB to this line, will not, the direction of the angle, I mean angle means direction of the angle, no? The direction of the angle will not change. For translation also, you can see the direction of the angle will not change. But if you do flipping, the direction of the angle becomes opposite. So there is a main difference between this flipping and rotation and translation. right? Rotation and translation are angle preserving motions called direct motions, and this flipping is or reflection about x-axis or some line is angle reversing motion, right? Okay. Now suppose I do a motion on the line AB. I want to check what are the possible motions we can do, right? To determine the motion, I need one more point, right? I cannot determine the motion by giving the images of 2 points. What we have seen is it is enough to get the effect of motion at 3 points, right? So what are the choices for the third point? One choice is this C1 prime. So this C is moved to C1 prime or mapped to C1 prime. Now what is the property of this C1 prime, this motion? It preserves the direction of the angle. It clearly says that it preserves the direction of the angle. But you have another choice, this point. This is also have the same distance from these distances AC and BC. This point also has the same distance from A and B, right? So this is a second choice for our motion. But here the angle is reversed, right? But these are the only possibilities for the motions. There is no other possibility no other choice for this C. That means these are the only motions we can have. So what is the conclusion? You take a line segment AB, then there are only 2 possible kind of motions. And what is the first motion? First motion is this angle preserving motion, which is going to be rotation or translation. And the second kind of motion is angle reversing motions. So these are angle preserving motions are called direct motions, and angle preserving motions are called opposite motions. Okay. Fine. Now what is our observation? There is exactly one direct motion M and exactly one opposite motion M prime that maps a given line segment AB to a line segment A prime B prime. That is what we have seen. Now let us concentrate to direct motions. These reflections are also building blocks for group of all motions, but I am not going to reflections. I am not considering. For my purpose, I need only direct motions. So what I am going to prove is direct motions are, in other words, rotation and translations are the only direct motions that we can consider, or their combination. That is what I am going to prove. How can we prove that? So let us consider 3 cases. What we have observed, to classify the motion, we need to consider one line segment, and there is 2 possibilities for the image for this line segment AB. That is what we have observed, right? Now let me see. Let me consider 3 cases. First case, suppose I have do the transformation to AB, and I have obtained another line segment A prime B prime which is parallel to AB, and it preserves the direction of AB, right? As you can see, so A prime B prime is parallel to AB and equal direction. So this is my motion. So it is clearly a translation, right? In this case, I have the translation is by the vector 4 minus 1. Right? Clearly this is a translation. If you remember, I am considering only direct motions. The third point also translated by the vector 4 minus 1. It is not difficult to observe. So let me translate the same language to complex. If you consider each point on this plane as complex numbers, or you consider the complex plane, then what I have did, I did the motion M of Z equal to Z plus W, where W equal to 4 plus I, right? So in this case you get the translation by a complex number W. Okay. Now let me consider the second case. This is parallel in this case these are parallel but opposite direction. Parallel but opposite direction. CD is transformed into C prime D prime, but the direction is opposite. See, this figure tells us that this is a rotation of pi about the intersection points of these diagonal lines. See, then you may ask, the rotation is not about origin. So in general you may allow rotation about any point, but if you stick on to origin, what you can do is you can translate this point to origin, then rotate this line d dash, then clearly it is a rotation about pi with respect to the origin, right? In that case it becomes a composition of translation and rotation. So if you permit rotation about any point, then it is merely a rotation. But if you stick on to the origin, then this is a composition of translation and rotation. In fact, two rotations. So this is the second case. So in this case also we are only getting rotations and translations or their compositions. Now let me consider the last case. Suppose they are not parallel. Okay, in this case also I want to prove that it is obtained by a rotation and translation. What I do is I extend these two lines and intersect at I, right? Since they are not parallel, it will intersect, at least in Euclidean geometry, right? Anyway, so I got an intersecting point I. Now what I do is I draw the line segment G prime and draw the perpendicular bisector, right? Now it is not difficult to observe that this G prime is a rotation of theta with respect to the point O, right? Yeah. Now here also, if you want to rotate about origin, what do you do? Like in the previous case, you just translate this point here and make this OG as your x-axis. I mean, rotate this line OG so that it coincides with the x-axis. Then rotate through an angle theta. So that will give you G prime. That exactly says that if G goes to G prime means all this line goes to GH goes to G prime H prime, right? So in this case also the motion is a rotation or a composition of translation and rotations, two rotations. So this essentially proves our claim, right? Every direct motion, angle preserving motions is given by rotation or translation or their composition, if you fix only or rotation about origin. Now what it says with respect to complex arithmetic, as we saw already, the rotation is given by multiplying with e raised to I theta and the translation is given by adding a complex number. So any direct motion is given by the map m of z equal to e raised to I theta z plus v, right? Alright, that means, yeah, now I again recall the idea of claim. Instead of viewing set of all complex numbers as the objects of the form a plus ib, you can think a complex number as a translation. Suppose you think each point on the plane as a translation TV. Then what is the composition gives? Composition of two translations gives you complex addition, right? That is what we see in the previous two figures back. We have seen that if you do two translations, it is merely adding two vectors. Yeah, correct. So you can view set of all complex numbers only with respect to addition as the set of all translations. right? So that is a one observation, and that gives back you the operation addition, not multiplication, only addition, right? Now we move to the second kind of motions, second kind of transformation, which are called similarities. In this section I will be too sketchy about the arguments. I may not prove anything, but it gives you the necessary ideas. What is the problem with motion? It only allows distance preserving transformations, right? But in practice, distance depends on what unit you have chosen. If somebody can choose 1 unit, 1 centimeter as their 1 unit length, or somebody else can choose 2 units as their 2 centimeter as their 1 unit. So in Euclidean geometry, we are interested not in distance preserving maps. In fact, we interested mostly in ratio preserving maps, ratios of distance preserving maps, right? Such maps are called similar objects. Such objects are called similar objects. So what is the definition of a similarity? A similarity is a mapping of the plane to itself that preserves the ratios of distances, right? So how the ratio, so the ratio is fixed means if you expand each distance in a figure by the same factor, that is what we did, right? To preserve the ratio of distances means we expand the whole figure by a constant factor, say r. This factor is usually called expansion factor, or yeah. Now it is not difficult to see that set of all similarities forms a group for which the group of motions is a subgroup. Clearly, any motion is a similarity transformation. Their distances are not only preserved, the ratios are not only preserved, always the ratio is 1. That is what happens in motion, right? Always the ratio is 1. So if you consider group of all similarities, then the group of all motions is a subgeometry. Let us see an example. Okay. See, you consider this image. See that at each stage I have expanded the figure image by a factor 0.86. That's what I did. So this is a typical example of similarity transformation. So at any point this factor will not change, right? That is exhibited using these 3 points. This AB by BC is always 0.86. This is exactly what happens in a similarity transformation. Okay, so what is the conclusion? Here the expansion factor is 0.86. Similarly, any similarity motion is determined by a similarity factor, expansion factor. So any similarity can be denoted by SR. So this SR, where R is the expansion factor. Okay. Or that I already told, any rotation is a similarity in transformation. I will denote rotation about origin by this, rotation about origin O through an angle theta, and any translation, they are all similarities. Now consider a similarity which is not a motion. I have only demonstrated in fact already I have shown a similarity which is not a motion, but nevertheless let me show one more example. So this is a second example. Here I explicitly give this dilation factor R. Suppose I have given the dilation factor 2. So what it did? It expands the figure. Not only it expands the figure, whatever factor you give, this expands the figure and it keeps the figure image within this radial lines, right? So this is a particular kind of similarity transformation called dilation, and this factor is called a dilation factor, right? That is the difference between arbitrary similarity transformation and this one. It not only expands the figure by a factor r, it keeps the figure within this radial line, within this two radial lines. Okay, so this is called a dilation. Dilation is same as multiplying. See, dilation is same as multiplying each. What I did here, I am multiplying each point on this triangle or on this ellipse by a factor r. That is what I am doing, right? So dilation is same as multiplying each vector by a scalar r. Let me demonstrate this using complex arithmetic. So this is exactly what we did for dilation. You consider a point z. Now what you did is multiply that z by a factor r, and that will give you another complex number w equal to rz. So this dilation is denoted by DOR. O means dilation about origin. You can do the same thing with respect to any point. Now let me do only with respect to origin. So the property of dilation is you can invert that. If you dilate by a factor r, you can do the inversion using 1 by r. You dilate with 1 by r. That gives you the inverse transformation. So set of all dilations about origin forms a subgeometry of group of all similarities, and that is given by this formula w equal to rz. Now let me do another thing. Just do the composition of dilation and rotation. Look at this complex number z. When you dilate by a factor r, it gives you the complex number rz. Now what I did is I rotate this complex number through an angle theta. Right? It is now evident that what we did in terms of complex arithmetic, we multiplied the complex number z by a factor r, then we multiply that resulting complex number with the factor e raised to I theta. Is that clear to everybody? I think it is clear. Now you compare these motions, compare these transformations with the previous figures. So exactly this dilative rotation, what it does, you take the complex number z and multiply with the other complex number r e raised to I theta, and that gives you the dilative rotation, right? So this is what we observe. A dilative rotation, composition of a rotation and a dilation is exactly multiplying two complex number. You fix a complex number w equal to r e raised to I theta. If you multiply this w with the points on the plane, it gives you all the dilative rotations. Okay. So previously I told you, if you consider each point on the plane as a translation, then it gives you complex addition, right? The composition gives you complex addition. Now if you consider each point on the plane as a dilative rotation, see dor comma theta, which is a dilative rotation about origin, then the collection of all dilative rotations about origin, what is the operation? Composition of transformation. That gives back you the complex multiplication. See how naturally complex multiplication comes via transformations. It is not like just writing a plus ib into and c plus id and opening the bracket. So the definition of complex multiplication naturally comes from Euclidean geometry. Historically, it may not be the correct origin, but we can visualize the complex multiplication using collection of all dilative rotations. Now, like we did for motions, we classified the motions as direct motions and opposite motions, right? Similarly, we can classify the similarities. Until now, we have seen only three kind of similarities: translations, rotations, and dilations and their compositions, right? One another similarity comes from flipping, which is an opposite motion. You do a dilation and flip it. That is also a similarity motion, right? So, if you take a similarity SR, any kind of similarity, you just imagine. I didn't draw any figure. Sorry for that. But if you imagine a figure, you do some kind of similarity, dilation or something. You dilate, then rotate, then translate, anything, then flip or anything. Then on that transformed figure, suppose you apply dp 1 by r, where p is an arbitrary point in the plane. You just dilate with respect with the factor 1 by r. Then can you imagine what happens? The resulting figure is only the motion of the first figure, right? When you do the similarity transformation SR, what it did for the figure, it expands, then do rotation, translation, or flipping, or some kind of things. If you do the dilation by 1 by r, you will get back the original size of the figure, but it will be moved to some other. It will be moved to some other portion of the plane. So the observation is, if you any similarity, if you compose with the appropriate dilation, gives back you a motion, and we have already classified the motion. So any similarity can be classified as direct similarity or opposite similarity. In fact, we can prove that. I am not doing this proof. We already saw the proof for motion, exactly same way, but little more effort. We can prove that every direct similarity is a dilative rotation or a translation. If you allow only rotation about origin, then you have to do some composition. Like you can recall my proof of motion classification. You have to do some composition also if you allow only rotation about origin. Alright, so that means essentially complex arithmetic gives you all the direct similarities. That means any direct similarity can be written as a transformation of the form SR of Z equal to R e raised to I theta Z plus W. This portion gives you the dilative rotations, and this gives you the translation. Right? Yeah. I think this is what I want to share with you. But let me give you some topics or some clues for further studies and discussion. I believe that a lot of BSc students and MSc students are here to listen to this video. So let me tell you, at least in Kerala, I know that students are very bad in geometry like me. So what you can do is, when you study calculus, draw lots of figures. That's the first thing you have to do. Either you can draw in some paper or book, or you can draw in your computer using GeoGebra or any kind of computer algebra system or any software. And try to read books on geometry. There are plenty of books on geometry. There are classical books also. You can try to read some of that books. And for MSc students, they have lots of opportunities. But unfortunately, we never uses these opportunities. A main source for geometry is complex analysis. For example, Mobius transformations. They contains several beautiful ideas about geometry of not only Euclidean, it contains ideas of non-Euclidean geometry also. And another option is, of course, topology. One funny thing is we do topology very heavily, but we never draw figures to study topology. Yeah, but we at least draw some figures for algebraic topology. Then another option is you do multivariable calculus and the extension of multivariable calculus, which is differential geometry. That also contains. And finally, draw lots of figures. For PG students also, I advise draw lots of figures. And these are the reference I have used. The 99% of the topic I have discussed is from this book, this beautiful book, Visual Complex Analysis by Tristan Needham. It's a very beautiful book, you should read, but it takes time. It's a very big book, and he gives lots of familiar ideas in a different manner using lots of figures, so it will take time to understand that, but it's a good book. And the second thing, it's a personal choice. There are several other books, but this one is a very classical book by David Hilbert and Watson, Geometry and Imagination. It contains lots of lots of steps. You should sometime you should go through this book, Geometry and Imagination. And finally, let me just share what technology I have used, as Ranjini asked me to share something about how technology can be used to deliver mathematics. We cannot do rigorous mathematics without chalk and board. But anyway, we can do such kind of discussions. I have used the Linux platform and used GeoGebra for drawing figures and doing some computer algebra, some algebra, and LaTeX also I have used. Of course, all of us are using Google Meet. I am recording this video using OBS, and I am going to edit this using Avidmex. I am going to upload this video to my YouTube channel. That's what I am going to do, and thank you for listening.